What was the psychotherapy like prior to the intervention?
So I'm just it's because it's all come full circle. I'm thinking
Yeah.
like back to the very beginning.
Yes,
And the
totally,
very
totally.
beginning was we wrote a therapy manual because these things like to be
Yeah.
standardized. How the hell do you standardize therapy?
Mm, mm.
It's just like everyone
Yeah.
anyone who's done sort of psychodynamic work goes, yeah, right. You can standardize that. Um, it's um so I remember I had to produce a therapy manual um and I remember saying to Justin, look, this is sort of what we
Yeah.
have to, this is what we have to follow. This is a
Yeah.
psychoanalyst.
Yeah, yeah,
Follow this. This
Yeah.
is what we have to do. Um, and there were certain aspects of it that we just simply had to do as part of a standard, treatment framework. And we had a checklist that we had to for this is part of a clinical trial.
of course,
There were
yeah.
things that we had to tick off for each session. And anyway, Justin shat on it from a great height.
Mm.
I
Nice.
can't I can't describe it any other way except the
Yeah,
he was just like going, this is yeah,
Not
anyway.
therapy.
He was just like, this is not therapy.
Yeah.
This is just this
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
anyway, so we anyway, it was a bit like he's just kind of saying it, just like, you know,
Yeah.
blew his nose with it. And then but we did, I mean, there were things obviously that the core components where we had to obviously get a developmental history and
yeah,
formulation that was about who are you,
Mm.
yeah,
not only who are you going to be in that room and what are
yeah.
we going to expect and how are you likely to see us. So
Mm.
how have the important figures and important relationships come about in your life, and how are they playing out now and how are they going to play out with us.
Yeah, nice.
So the transference we knew was going to be augmented. We had no idea how much, and it really was.
Yes.
Um, uh, so that was the guts of what we did in the prep sessions, and then we looked at things like getting them prepared for the actual experience, sort of how to navigate it, what to expect, and again, how do you do that? But before we even went there, we asked a pivotal question, which is there anything that you don't want to come up in these sessions?
That's a great question. Yeah,
Because if they didn't, that's the stuff we had to focus on. And
totally.
yeah, because it was gonna, yeah, it would come up, like the more you try and suppress something, three or four times, I think more likely to come back up.
Mm.
So yeah, that was a very, very important question that we had to ask. And then we
Wow.
would, yeah, we
Yes.
would do some talking around that if there were things that people didn't want to come up, and how we would manage that and how we would meet that and use a lot of reframing to, okay, well, now this is an opportunity to meet it very differently, in this whole other way and all these other ways that you've tried. But, if it does show up, let's think about how we would what will we do with that?
Mm,
How will you meet it? And
mm.
what would you say to it? And so kind of getting them thinking that. Um,
The
It's almost a
boundaries.
Gestalt feel to that too, like actually speaking to these parts. There's an IFS component, but there's a
oh
Gestalt
yeah,
field as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so we did that, but then what else did we do? We did the boundaries, you said,
Therapeutic touch. Yeah.
therapeutic
Ah,
touch,
yes. Oh, yes.
very explicit talk about
Yeah.
that.
Very. A lot of rehearsal as well.
We'd actually rehearse it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if this aspect or this shadow component were to emerge, it was rehearsing
No,
around
no,
that.
more, no, more
Oh no,
in
sorry. Yeah,
terms of,
this is yeah.
yeah, there's sort of more to do with, what might happen in the room on the dose day
Mm-hmm.
if they were to want to establish touch.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, grab a hand or something
Yeah,
like that. So yeah.
yeah,
And we had to acclimate people to the treatment,
yes.
Mm, mm,
like the environment as well, because it is
Mm,
intensely intimate
mm,
and
mm.
it's so different to sitting in front of a
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah.
A chair, you've got a chair, you've got a chair, you're lying down, and you've got these two people sitting beside you, you're sort of flanked by them.
Yeah.
I mean, how intimate is that? It's a lowered lighting,
Mm.
it's music, it's quite a soft atmosphere, but they're under a blanket. It's a very vulnerable place
So
for them to be.
vulnerable. Yeah.
And then on top of that, they've got eye shades on and headphones. And we had only met them maybe month prior to
Mm.
this. So that's a big trust. So we would take them. So obviously we'd do some talking, but then we would gradually move them into the dose space to kind of get them used to it, and then we would rehearse what it would feel like. So we would give them a music experience, and then during that we would talk very, very explicitly about therapeutic touch and the
Yep.
limits of that as well. It was never instigated by us. I know that they do that in the US where they'll go, "Oh, are you okay?" And we don't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the things that we would say to people is, let's practice if you do, and also first of all, seeing if they do want therapeutic touch and if that's something that they're okay with. Some people don't want that and they need the safety of that distance, and so we'd find other ways to make contact with them if they needed some support.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
through talking and
The,
how they could let us know that they needed support.
so obvious for obvious reasons, extremely client led,
Yes,
consent
yeah.
every step of the way.
Only ever instigated by them.
Totally.
Always, yeah,
Yeah,
that makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
So,
But before we dive in, there's this just the way you guys must have had to fast track the cultivation of the therapeutic alliance is
oh,
is
yeah.
almost sounds like it had to take on a creative component, given how vulnerable they're going to be.
Well, yeah.
The other part of it too, though, was, when we saw them in preparation for the dose, we didn't see them once a week.
Mm.
I think if you're seeing people once a week, it's 1 hour out of, 168. And, very quickly, as you know, when you're seeing people for therapy, what has taken place in that room sort of collapses in the face of everything else that's actually happening in your real life,
Mm.
which is where stuff actually happens.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And, so one of the things that we did was, and we sort of had to do it because of people's chemotherapy schedules, and some people came from interstate, is that we saw people on successive days. So
Yeah.
we saw them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, provided the dose on Thursday, saw them on Friday. And that was like an artifact of scheduling issues.
Mm.
But actually what it did was it accelerated all of those sort of aspects of the therapeutic alliance that needed to be there. It really intensified them.
Mm.
That meant as well that when people came, like, they were totally committed to what they were going to do that
Yes.
week. It's not as though they kind of went off and did sort of other things and, came back a week and where were we? Where did we sort of leave off? There was actually no space for that.
Mm.
And that, I think, was really important, actually. It was really important because it meant that by the time we got to the dose with them, which was sort of, on the fourth day, like, all the important parts of their story, all of the things in their sort of everyday life, their ways of thinking about what their illness means to them, how their illness is sort of made sense of in their world in some way that, becomes part of their life. All those things were right there, and you didn't have to do all of that sort of re-establishing who you were to this person a week ago.
Yeah.
Like, it was really powerful.
Mm.